the Let's Talk Leadership podcast. My name's Ellie Greening.
And my name's Sandra Patel-Stewart.
On this podcast, we will be interviewing some of the UK's greatest tech leaders. We'll be discussing war stories, battle scars, and their learnings from their journeys.
Hopefully, you will pick up some great tips, learn from others' experiences, and have a good laugh along the way.
Hi everyone, welcome to the Let's Talk Leadership podcast, and thank you very much for tuning in. Today we've got David Crawford, who is the Group CTO for Naked Wines. Naked Wines are revolutionising the way wine is made and sold in the UK, USA and Australian markets. Their customers help them directly support talented independent winemakers in return for preferential prices, which they pass on to their customers, who they call angels. The angels invest each month towards future orders, so I'm sold. Sounds fantastic. Can't wait to have a look today after today's recording, but lovely to have you on, David.
Oh, thanks for having me. Wine coming to your door direct from fabulous independent winemakers at a decent price. What is not to love about that?
Yeah, it sounds fantastic.
Fantastic. And hi David, it's great to have you on. We think we came across your details as we share a mutual connection, Armadeep Sira, which I think is pretty well known in the tech industry. So it was.
Yeah, she's got a fabulous story, Armadeep, not just as an empowered woman in technology who's come through a variety of technology roles, but she was in like a totally different industry as a school teacher before, and she just went, I'm going to do something different. Her story is amazing, and I'm happy to have been part of it and supported part of it.
Fantastic, brilliant. So it'd be great to start with finding more about yourself, David. I always like to start these off with finding out, where did it all start? How did you get into the tech industry? And let's hear about your journey.
Sure. Okay. Well, it started about 30 years ago, just over 30 years ago. This is the point at which you say you don't look that old, David. But I really didn't know what I wanted to do. I was into sports. I was kind of an outdoor kind of guy, and I was on my way after sixth form to university to study sports science, and I was just a bit fed up with education. And I was signed up to go, and it literally like a month before I was due to go, I was like, do you know what? I'm not going. I'm kind of done with education, and that's something that I've sort of maintained as I've gone through. I've learnt lots as I've gone, but I've never been back to formal education. Mm-hmm. I've always kind of learnt from a practical way of doing things. So I thought, I need to sort of get myself onto some, and I guess you might call it an apprenticeship or a training scheme or something like that. And I literally had no idea. I just knew it wasn't going to be in the sports direction that I was taking. And computers were really coming to the forefront then, were becoming much more accessible. And I went, well, it sounds interesting. I'd done a little bit of a computer course at school, which was basically playing Worm on the computer. And I thought, you must be able to do more than this with computers. So I showed a bit of interest in that, and I managed to get on actually a government training scheme, a 6-month intensive programmer training course for, and this will date me, for programming in COBOL on ICL mainframes.
Wow, I remember the days of recruiting for COBOL.
Exactly. Had I kept up that skill, I'd now be working for about £1 million a day for a bank somewhere. But I got into that, and it was a great course. It was for Her Majesty's Stationery Office, HMSO, in Norwich. That department that doesn't exist anymore, but there was sort of 2,000 people up in Norwich. It was straight into a sort of a big corporate environment. And I really, was working with a team and sort of learning how to interact with people, learning about technology. And it was, some of today's technology is a little copy and paste, little using a tool. This was kind of, some of my colleagues that were there was still using like cards, programming cards to feed the machines and stuff. I was on the new exciting stuff, on the sort of actually programming in a text editor, so that was quite interesting. And that sort of ignited my passion, but funnily enough also started the journey of me not being a great doer of technology. So although it interested me greatly, although I was very passionate and have remained so, I've never been very good at doing it. And so I kind of straight away started looking for how can I stay in this industry, but sort of do other things. And again, that's been part of my career journey throughout.
That's great that you recognise that. And so where...
I think I recognised it. Maybe one or two of my managers also recognised it. Such is life, right? So yeah, so basically I had established that I enjoyed the technology industry and I wanted to do other things. I then sort of got involved with supporting a project management software tool, and that started me thinking, oh, what's this whole project management thing? How does that work and stuff like that? So I kind of, again, that whole self-education, I just dived in, learned a bit, and became knowledgeable about project management, particularly in technology delivery projects. And so that sort of grew from there, and I went project manager, program manager, program director, and eventually all the way up to owning and running a team of about 500 people as a director of software engineering at Sky. So I fast passed there, but basically always technology, and always sort of more on the making technology accessible to the business people, the stakeholders in the wider business, rather than being the person who does the technology. But part of that was being able to work with, understand, communicate with, and find people who were better technologists than me. And that's something that sort of stayed with me consistently throughout my career.
Fantastic. And now you're CTO at Naked Wines. You've been there for what, 4 or 5 months, have you?
Yeah, about 4 months coming up to that.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and that's something that came about. So I've held a few positions. I suppose my biggest role was at Sky, where I was director of software engineering and had a team of about 500 people spread across the globe, looking after several projects. And that was really exciting. I enjoyed it. But I actually got to the point where I couldn't really see where else I could go with that. And also at 500 people scale, you're a little far away from anything. You're sort of not quite in the detail of too much. You know, you're sitting sort of almost in an ivory tower signing checks and getting presentations done to you, and it's okay, and you feel like you've made it and for half an hour, and then you go, actually I'm a bit bored now, right? So so I decided to sort of try to dive that down a bit. I did an interim role for Camelot Global, the lottery people, national lottery people. That was really interesting and exciting. Then I went to
I can imagine that was great.
Yeah, it's good. Then I went to a much smaller company, not a startup, more of a scale up in Shoreditch. Had to throw away all my suits. I tried to grow a beard, didn't really work, but it was interesting to see the culture coming through in smaller technology companies. The diversity there was absolutely fabulous, and just the real sort of grit and energy that people wanted to do new things in new ways. And then I finished there. I got them to a point where they were going to be acquired, and then I basically was looking for the next thing. And I knew I didn't want it to be too big, but I knew I didn't want it to be really small. I'd sort of worked out what my sweet spot was. And Naked Wines is for me is exactly at the point where they've got sort of 300 people globally and are growing. They've got a really good solid business. Their technology is a good solid base, but everything is up for scaling. Everything is up for growing, and the future looks really, really great in that industry. And they want somebody who has got some experience of how to scale a business, how to scale a technology team, and all of those things, but also somebody who isn't just going to come in and go, right, it's solution F, this is how you do it. Somebody who's going to be flexible, somebody who's going to come in and understand the culture of that business, how they want to work and how they want to grow. And I think through the previous roles I've played, I've sort of made myself into that person who's got some experience, but some flexibility as well.
Sounds great. It's really exciting. Great opportunity for something for you to get your teeth stuck into and like you say, upscale and something challenging. Yeah. From our initial conversation that we had, I think it was last week regarding this podcast, we were discussing a bit about the values that you work to within Naked Wines, how you're kind of trying to give back and support your customers, your suppliers. Can you talk a little bit more about this and tell our listeners more about that? Because I think given the current times as well, I think that'd be quite interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was talking to a colleague yesterday at Naked who just come back from maternity leave. So I'd been in the company for 3 or 4 months, but hadn't yet engaged with her. And so she asked me, what have you found, about Naked Wine that interests you? And one of the things I said was that I've long been an ambassador for diversity. I instigated at Sky the Women in Technology program and sort of ran that.
Wow.
Also,
Which is hugely successful. So that's amazing.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a really good program that me and a few of my colleagues championed. I was also a Women in Leadership sponsor, and so that was a good initiative. And I've looked for diversity. I've worked with a great bunch of people in Portugal, so continue looking for that diversity, but also a culture that accommodates the diversity that you have, right? And particularly when it comes to families, I'm a huge family man myself. My children are a bit older now, but making sure that you're accommodating people to do their best work for you, but in a way that suits their lifestyle and the rest of their family and other things that they have, interest they have in their life. And I saw that a bit at Sky, but Sky's such a huge place, it was difficult to do in a personalized way. And then I saw that a bit at Camelot, and they were getting it right. And then when I went to Shoreditch, everybody, it's standard there, right? It absolutely, the respect that everybody has for each other and their life choices and all of that kind of stuff is so ingrained in the Shoreditch culture. And then I found that similar thing in Naked Wines. And they're just, it felt a bit like coming home. That's what I said to my colleague yesterday. It felt like finding a place where actually my values and principles are underpinned by the actions that company do. And so they look after their staff enormously well. And not only from a people support point of view, and there's things which on the surface may look like they're sort of little value adds and bells and whistles, but we've got things like, we have a mental health service support, we have things for like a physiotherapist who can help you with your back problems, we have food Fridays where we get an outside caterer in to get everybody teamed up together having food, and sometimes we do it internally ourselves. We have all sorts of things. Plus, of course, we're a wine company, we have lots of wine tasting, right? And everybody loves that a lot. But I think it's not just our staff. I think everybody would say, yeah, we look after our staff, that's good. And I think we also focus hugely on our customers and our angels, as you said, these people who are on the journey with us, investing in the talented independent winemakers who we've got relationships with. And then like this relationship that goes customer through us to our winemakers. And we're supporting the winemakers who perhaps otherwise couldn't have the ability to focus on the quality and the range of wines that they're doing, might not be given that opportunity. But our funding and our business model with them allows them to do that, and that gets great wine to our customers. So it's a very symbiotic relationship where everybody wins from that. And so that's really important. To your point about the current time and how's that, I think that we've got 300 people around the globe now working from home. So that was an almost overnight thing 7 weeks ago. It was like, oh, okay. And I was like, what was it, 5 weeks in the job? And it's like, can you just get everybody working from home? Fortunately, my team there are really on top of it, and they managed to get that sorted very quickly. And we've supported those people working from home in all sorts of ways, not just with technology, but with personal support. We've helped let people who have childcare challenges, children running around at home. Everybody's been very understanding. We've said, look, unprecedented times, you need to not attend a few conference calls or have a couple of days off here and there. We're going to be really flexible about that, because we value the contribution that you make, at other times, when we're not in a situation like that.
What size team is that's been responsible for the 300?
Oh, it's a team of about 6 people.
Wow.
Yeah, it's quite a small team. They're an efficient bunch, and we had VPN set up, so it's all done securely and all that kind of stuff. I'm out of respect to them. I'm not going to say they didn't have to pull a couple of long days, and there were some challenges around that, but they've done an absolutely superb job across the globe. There's some in-country local challenges, but also giving access to all of our global systems. that's something that we've had to do. And security is obviously paramount. We've got a lot of customer details, you know, so we need to make sure that we're doing that in a secure way. And there's some challenges to that, but the guys rose to the challenge, and everybody seems to be really happy. And we can carry on going. You know, we can carry on working at home for a little while yet. So, you know, I think in line with the government advice, we're not looking to change the status tomorrow, you know.
Yeah, that sounds great. I guess being a global team as well, you're quite used to using the sort of communication and collaboration tools on offer. Is it MS Teams, or what have you been using at Naked Wines to stay connected?
So largely, we're a Google Suite company. Okay. We subscribed to that a few years ago. So Hangout is the video conference of choice internally, but we've been doing some virtual wine tasting sessions. Eamon, who's our global wine guy, he's the sort of face of Naked Wine from a wine expertise perspective. And one of our wine experts, Ray, they hold something called Thirsty Tuesday. So you can go and look for that. And basically, we get our winemakers that are part of our angel network, and they come on and they talk to our angels. And, you know, hopefully you've been able to get a bottle of their wine, and you can literally do a wine tasting, and they'll talk to you about what's in the wine, how it was made.
Right.
Yeah. So we're doing that, and that's generally done through Zoom, because there's a level of control that you can bring to that as well. But we actually, and talking about, you know, keeping people working from home and stuff, obviously a large part of that is not the physical and technical part, but is the morale part of it, right? Keeping people's spirits high.
Of course.
So we've got a number of things that we've done in that area. We've got just little things like we have Slacker of the Week. So, you know, we encourage people. We've set up a few funny channels, and the working from home channel, and a tell me what's going on channel. We've even got a rate my lunch channel, you know, sort of thing. And we've got people posting up funny pictures and all of that, and animated GIFs and stuff. And
might steal that idea. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Sandra, you would never win Rate My Lunch. She has the same thing for lunch every day: chicken, couscous, and sun-dried tomatoes.
You've got to vary it up there, Sandra. You've got to get some kebabs ordered in there. Or something.
Yeah, you're going to have to be a bit more inspirational if you want to put it as the Rate My Plate channel. That sounds like really good fun, and definitely some great ideas there, because obviously it must have been really difficult. Starting a new job can be challenging at times, but like you say, you were literally 5 weeks in. So that's not even really enough time, is it, to get your feet under the desk and settled in before all this disruption. So I can imagine that was definitely really challenging. What about sort of like motivating the teams around delivery and uniting the teams? You've mentioned some great sort of like team working ideas there, but motivating the teams around their work would be really helpful, because obviously we're in week 8 now of lockdown here, aren't we, in the UK? And we're pretty much, it looks like we're going to be another 8 weeks at home. So by the time this podcast comes out, it'd be great to give any tips around that for our listeners.
Sure. I think that in terms of motivating the team to do their work, in Naked Wines, and I think probably a lot of my peers across technology companies will probably be feeling the same, is that actually a lot of the technology delivery teams for a long time have wanted to work from home more, right? And they're like, you know, I can get my head down, I can, you know, I mean, you walk into any modern technical department and half the team have got their headphones on, right? And are just like down on their computers and don't disturb me. So, you know, you take their headphones off and put them in their private environment at home, and they can knock themselves out, right? And so actually, I think that we've seen productivity. I think probably in the first couple of weeks, as everybody settled in, it probably dipped a little bit as people got used to it. And then I think when people did get used to it, it was like, okay, well, I'll just crack on then, sort of thing. And so we've not really seen a big productivity dip in technology delivery. I think what people are missing are the whiteboard chats. The thing where somebody's trying to explain something to you, and you just normally would go, just jump in a room and we'll just do it up on the whiteboard. And yeah, we've looked at virtual whiteboards, and I've got a whiteboard here, but you can't quite see it when I'm drawing on it and stuff like that. So I think there is need for that kind of, you know, collaborative working space in that sense. But when people are actually cracking on with their jobs, I don't think it's caused that much of a problem. And so that's good. I think the biggest thing is not so much group productivity or team productivity, but individual productivity, because And I was just asking you at the start of this, Sandra and Ellie, how you were at lockdown, and so I'm saying, oh yeah, up and down, good days, bad, and I think, that's the thing, is that it's such a weird situation that you can turn up with somebody who you've been working with fine all week, and then Friday morning you talk to them and they're just a totally different person, and you have to be sort of, think about that and get your empathy skills on and just go, okay, well, what's happening here? Do I need to help them out? Do I need to cut them some slack today? And so it's reading that and understanding how people feel, and then helping the rest of the team go, Fred's not going to be as useful today as he was yesterday, and that's okay. So, let's just pick up the slack and wrap around and make things a bit better for Fred,
Yeah,
so
I think that's really cool.
Feeling your way through that.
Yeah, and I think that's something that everyone can relate to. It's difficult, isn't it? And it is hard. 1 minute you're trying to give it your all and 100% of things go fantastically, and the next day it's just not as easy to do that, is it? We've all I've never spent this much time in my house before. I'm actually finally getting some money worth out of my mortgage for once, but yeah, no, it can definitely be testing and difficult, and supporting that mental health piece is the most important thing. I saw a post actually earlier today that was saying, like, can we just stop all these Zoom calls and video calls, because sometimes you actually have a better conversation behind the screen, don't you, when you're not being seen? So it's just adapting to different styles and different things that you can do that can help your workforce as much as you can. And obviously for you as well, you're still getting to know everyone, aren't you, as a leader?
Yeah. And I think that if I hadn't had the sort of 5 to 6 weeks that I'd had in the office, and if it's not coming across, I'm a reasonably chatty person, and I'm kind of friendly and open, and I've got a good level of confidence, and so I was out meeting people, and I managed to get across to the American office in that sort of 5-week period and see people there. So I missed out on Australia, and it doesn't look like I'm going to get there for a while, but that's a shame. But I sort of, by getting out and talking to people and socializing, I did get to a reasonable comfort level with people. Had I not had any of that, I have no idea how I'd have been able to do this, right? It's very, very challenging to do that. And of course, don't forget, it's not just me learning about them, is that they're learning about me and how I operate. And it's beholden on me to sort of share that a little bit, and to sort of talk around that a little bit. And absolutely, and any new leader who denies this is not telling the truth. I made some mistakes in the first few weeks, right? I maybe misjudged a situation or misunderstood why something had been done. And so, there were a couple of occasions where I was getting a bit of a vibe that I was maybe approaching something wrongly, or so I have to, normally I'd take that person out for a coffee, and eventually we'd get there. But over a video call, you're sort of leaning in and going, is everything okay? Have I done something wrong? And so your approach to how you build that relationship with those individuals changes as well. And that can be quite interesting.
Yeah. For your team then, when you joined Naked Ones, were they operating under much flexible working? I think you were saying there was a little bit, but were they doing sort of a couple of days a week? And is this something you think you'll take moving forward then?
So they weren't. They'd had a bit of a trial last year, and where people had said, can we do some home working? And there was a bit of a trial put in place, and I'm not sure of the details, but basically it didn't quite have enough structure. It wanted to be a little bit sort of, well, you're empowered and do what you like as long as you, and maybe it didn't have enough structure to, anyway, it didn't really go well. And so it all sort of got a little bit pulled back, and was like, no, let's not do that. And I think probably about 2 weeks, 3 weeks into the lockdown, I started to get questions through my leadership team, but also directly from the guys in the wider team, saying, so, it's going all right. Is this something we could do on a more and my message to them was absolutely clear, is that this is yours to mess up, right? This is absolutely yours to mess up. You prove that you can run and contribute your value to the business effectively in this home working situation, individually and as a team. Why would I say no? Right? Why would I not embrace that future way of working? So and thus far they're really responding well to that. And I still think there'll need to be some rigor around it. But I've worked in those flexible situations. I'm now, ironically, I've spent the last 20 years doing a sort of 2-hour commute to London, And now my company is 30 minutes up the road from where I live, right? Which is
that must be lovely.
Yeah, it's an accident more than planning, but it's a nice one. And but you know, so I've done lots of home working in the past before, but I have to go and, you know, be present in Norwich up the road and be visible and you know, available to people. And I think we'll all have to do a bit of that. But people also want to work from home and they want to be treated like mature adults.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, so from my point of view, it's theirs to prove that it works sustainably going forward.
Yeah, definitely. I think you said earlier that you've seen the teams, you know, now be more productive and you know, producing some great work. So I think on a positive note, out of this lockdown, is there's going to be more and more businesses that are probably going to continue to mix it up. I mean, we at Transition Partners, we always offered at least 1 or 2 days a week working from home, and it may be that further down the line, you know, when we can start phasing people back into the office, that we have a bit of more of a mix and a balance.
I think for us, it obviously opens up a lot of opportunity for recruiters across the UK that we might have previously said, no, we'd want you in Leeds 3 or 4 days a week in our head office. We've got an office over in Berlin, and it's always worked great, and working from home, or we work offices, and we've been really flexible. I think for us now, it means that there's no kind of barriers in terms of opportunity and the next hires we make, and hopefully that will be the same in tech, which is really exciting.
I think that, plus it will open up the global boundaries a little bit more. Yeah, I think you know. So as I mentioned earlier, I set up a development center in Portugal, in Lisbon.
Yeah, wow.
And there was a lot of cynicism from the UK team. This is when I was at Sky. There was a lot of cynicism about, well, how will that work? How do we do? And you know, Sky had really lent into its agile journey, and everything was co-location, collaboration, iteration.
Yeah.
You know, and which is all great. And it was like, well, how's that going to work if they're over there? Yeah. And we spent a lot of effort. Some of it involved video conferencing, some of it involved a little bit of travel, all that kind of stuff. But we spent a lot of effort convincing people that remote working, even if it's in another office somewhere else, was just not really a barrier to productivity and to great quality work. So I know that, and I think that sometimes that's the advantage, is that, you know, what I bring as a leader is experience. I'm not necessarily got everything right in my career, but experience of good things that work and things that don't work. And so I can bring that to Naked Wine, and I have that knowledge to go, oh no, I've seen this work. I know that if we put this kind of environment and structure around it, it can work, and that opens up all sorts of opportunities for growth and for a team that not only is globally responsive, but perhaps is physically globally located. You know?
I think on that point, like you say, you've got loads of amazing experience. You've been there, done that within some huge branded organisations. It'd be brilliant if you can give us a few of your war stories and battle scars, I guess challenging scenarios you faced. We're in unprecedented times at the moment, but it'd be great to hear about things in your past that you've really learned from, and kind of what gave you grit to where you are today.
So there's a few of them. Some of them, you know, I probably don't want to relive too much, but I think that, probably I worked for BT for a number of years, not as a direct employee, but as a contractor or through one of the third-party companies. And so I was on site at BT Labs at Marsham Heath up in Suffolk, and BT was a great company doing great things, but was absolutely colossal. And it was quite a lot of aggression. There was quite a lot of, you know, shouting and pointing of fingers, and culturally it wasn't that great a place. This was back then. I think, you know, it's moved on considerably since then, but maybe sort of 15 odd years ago. And I found that challenging, because I'm kind of I'm a nice person. I like everybody to be happy. I don't really like controversy, you know, sort of thing. I like to placate people and everybody be smiling and all working happily together. So I found that quite challenging. And you know, at points was wondering whether, not specifically within BT, I'm not calling out anybody in particular, but wondered if there's been points in my career where I felt almost bullied. And that's something that sort of stuck with me, because I'm personally a very resilient character. I choose to be optimistic about things. I've got a high level of confidence. I'm always on the up, right, sort of thing. So even,
you can definitely tell that from your attitude and the way you come across.
Even if I was being a little bit oppressed, a little bit bullied and stuff like that, I might almost not recognize it. But there was a couple of occasions when it made me think, well, how do I, having lived through a few of those scenarios myself, how do I make sure that I'm not supporting that kind of culture wherever else I go? So I think, making sure that you don't tolerate any kind of undue pressure or bad behavior. And that needs to start at the top of an organization. And I sort of learned that in reverse, as it were. And then I've made sure that I've been really diligent at wheedling that out in any organizations that I've been responsible for, and trying to keep myself true. I'm a pretty demanding person in terms of, like, I always want more, I always want to go faster, all of those kind of things. But you can be demanding.
Like me and Ellie.
Yeah, you can be demanding without being horrible, right? And without being rude to people and all that kind of stuff. So I think that was, one of the things that stayed with me. And it's not so much giving me grit, it's more experiencing some of that situation has made sure I'm not giving that situation to other people. So that sort of formed part of my approach and character there. I think more specifically, there are a couple of things that sort of resonate were launches. Every CTO is going to tell you there were some launches that didn't go entirely according to plan.
No, they never do they?
Yeah, and I particularly remember one where it was a big thing, but it just wasn't it wasn't meant to have any problems. It was one of those. It wasn't one that you thought was going to be a problem. It was when we launched the Sky Store service app. And they'd never had a service app before. This was when people weren't really doing chat on mobile phones or anything like that. So it was a new thing. You could interface with a service agent through this app on your phone, right? And I know that's old school, but 10 years ago that was innovative, right? And
yeah, of course.
And we got this, and basically it was brilliant. We'd done lots of testing, trial. It was all really great. And the stakeholder I had at the time, who was an incredibly knowledgeable person about Sky's service estate, very passionate, but quite unforgiving if things went wrong, right? So the thing, nice guy, I liked him, but just could really get really be quite like that if things didn't go right, and voice his opinion strongly. And everything was going well, and we decided to launch the app and release it to the App Store at 6 a.m. One morning. And for some reason, I'd scheduled to speak at an all hands, a big Sky all hands with the CTO and a senior leadership group later that morning, about 11 o'clock. And so for me, it was like, yeah, we'll release that at 6 o'clock in the morning. That'll be well. I'll go off. It was at Lord's Cricket Stadium where it was the venue. I'll go off to the cricket stadium and do my little presentation, which was, we launched this app today, right? Isn't it great and stuff like that? So that was the whole thing. Anyway, you know where this is going. Basically, the app launched, and the person who launched the app had released, I don't know, a wrong software library with it, and it just didn't work. It just you couldn't get into the app. It was just like a complete no working nothing. It wasn't like a little bug, and it was just game over. And
makes me anxious even hearing the story.
Yeah. I had the director, the stakeholder, senior stakeholder, 6 a.m. in the morning. He's like on the phone going, "App's not working, Dave." And I'm like, "What do you mean it's not working?" And he's like,
"Oh
yeah, no, of course it's working. We've tested everything. It's totally working." He's like, "It's not working, Dave." And this is like I say, several years ago, Apple's release sort of process wasn't as smooth as it. We had to pull all sorts of stops out to get Apple to resubmit one and get it out, and it took us a few hours and stuff like that. And I couldn't give my presentation at the all hands, a because I was too busy trying to pedal back and fix the problem, right, and deal with this attentive stakeholder, shall we say, and help the team to get to where they needed to fix the problem. And B, because I couldn't go and do a presentation about the successful launch of an app that we just balled up. So it was very tricky. Anyway, there's a nice end to the story. We got it out, we got it back up within a few hours, and it all worked. And I remember I went sort of about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I went to the all hands at Lord's, and just to sort of finish off the day and stuff like that. And my boss had said, better come and give me a debrief sort of thing. And I turned up and I went in, and somebody was doing a presentation in a huge room of all these, you know, executive people. And my boss clocked me from across the room, and he just nodded at me and he went, like, I'll meet you outside, right, sort of thing. And I was like, and he was a nice guy and everything, but I was just like, I'm going to get it for this. This is.
You didn't need it after that day.
It's just like, I'm going. And he came out, and I'll name check him. He's a chap called Colin McQuaid, lovely chap, right? And he came out, and he just walked straight up to me, and he gave me the biggest bear hug. And he went, it's all right. We all have days like that. And that stayed with me as something that, you know, right in the fire, when everything had gone as wrong as it could be, unintentionally, we'd done all the right things, you know, it was just a little mistake, a little bit of human error at the last thing. And he just like, now, we had some interesting conversations after that about how we're not going to do it again. You know, he didn't let me totally off the hook sort of thing, but his initial reaction was to be supportive in the moment. And I hope that over time since then, and in the future, when, you know, my teams don't do so well, when mistakes are made, as they will be, I hope that I have that same compassion.
That's amazing. Because like you say, you've got to learn from it. So you've got to be able to have the discussions afterwards to be able to take what you've learned moving forward. But at the time, all you need is that support. I bet you needed a glass of wine that night.
Yeah, a little bit. It's definitely. It was good. And you know, I back to my point about education. I think I've got a well-rounded education now, because I tried to learn from everything. I'm stubborn as well, like everybody else. I think I'm right all the time, you know. But you know, I learned from those experiences, and then hopefully take other people on the same journey. And I think that's what ultimately enables you to support others in their journey, is being able to share those experiences.
So on that note, obviously we've talked about, I mean, one of our questions is usually to go through leadership styles and how you would motivate your teams. And I think we've kind of touched on that, on those areas with some of your answers. So it'd be quite interesting for the viewers and listeners to know more about and understand what you would like your legacy to be in the future.
So I thought about this a little bit, and I thought, well, I'm not really I'm not a scientist. I'm not inventing anything here. You know, I don't even own any IP in anything particular. You know, something. I thought, well, I'm not going to be remembered for some kind of, oh, he invented that, he invented this. And, you know, there's some really interesting things that I've been involved in. One of the things that stands out is that, you know, I led the technology team that delivered the world's first broadcast TV on a mobile phone. And just think about that for a second. Well, now we broadcast on mobile devices all the time. We take it for granted. Look at what we're doing now. There was a time when this didn't exist. And it was when I was at BT, part of a venture there called BT Vision. And we beat the Koreans in delivering broadcast TV to a mobile phone, and I've got it hanging on my wall in a little case that I can't show you because it's got swear words on it. But you know, it basically is. You know, there are things like that, and then I think, well, is that what I want to be remembered for? And I don't think I want to be remembered for the things that I built, the projects I ran, and all that kind of stuff. I think I'd rather be remembered for the teams that I led, the teams that I built, the people that I pulled together. And I've always sort of described it as you know, my drug of choice is the buzz I get off of seeing people progress, right? So, you know, we were talking about Amardeep earlier on, right? I'm not responsible for Amardeep's career. I was a small cog in you know, her big sort of cycle of getting to where she's got to today. But I was pleased to be involved, and I'm absolutely certain that at some point in time, I will have input to her, you know, in moving on in that career and giving her the right support. And there's a chap now who's above where I was in Sky now, who came from the Portuguese office, a chap called Pedro Giada, and he's like almost one of my proudest sort of people that I've worked with, in that he came with an acquisition that I led for Sky, and I put some faith in him, and he responded well to that. And you know, he by his own admission was not a great people person. You know, he wasn't a great leader. He was a great technologist, but not a great people person. But he wanted to learn so much. So I kind of helped him and coached him and mentored him. not just me, lots of other people as well. He had a few other leaders in Sky, and he soaked it all up, and he soaked it all up. And now he's a leader, you know, beyond where I am as a leader. And I'm really proud to have been involved in part of that. And so I think that's what my legacy will be, is that people whose careers I've been, you know, in touch with or been a part of, and they've achieved not necessarily commercial success, but achieved what they wanted to be as a person in their professional lives. And if I've helped that, that's a good legacy for me.
That's great.
More of the imprint then that you leave in with people.
Yeah, that's I guess.
Do you get involved in, or are you, do you get involved in any mentorship programs? Are you a mentor, or do you have a mentee?
So I do a bit of unofficial mentoring to a few people. I've got, you know, you can imagine over the years, I've picked up a few people who keep in touch and ping me, you know, every now and again and say, can I have a chat about this? It's often when they're thinking of taking a career change, you know, that's obviously the point at which people want a little bit of advice and guidance. And I do that. I was involved in that scheme at both Sky and also at Camelot. I think it's something that we're probably going to develop more at Naked Wines as we grow as a company, as we, you know, take the current employees on that growth journey, and as obviously we expand and bring in new employees. I think, you know, people will want mentoring. I think people will want a little bit of support about, you know, are they doing the right things? Are they engaging with their peers and their colleagues in the right way? And you know, all of those kind of things. And so that's something which I'm not officially doing at the minute, but I've always enjoyed doing, and I'm looking forward to doing some more.
Right, fantastic.
I think it'll be good to find out, obviously you're very busy, but and now's a difficult time because we're all trapped in and locked at home for a few more weeks, but it'd be interesting to find out how you look after yourself and how you keep yourself sane and healthy and manage the stress of your role at Naked Wines and your previous roles before. What do you do?
So my team today and all of my previous teams will tell you I get quite excited, right? I've got a lot of energy. My hands come up a lot like this, even in video calls. And, you know, so I'm a high energy, excitable person, right? I like to call that passion because that's a nice professional word, yeah. What I don't do is I don't get shouty. I'm always quite vocal, but I don't get shouty. I never lose my rag. I'm not an angry person. I always prefer to look on the positive side of things. And I think mentally that positions me to be resilient. Yeah, and I think that, you know, that's really helpful. I think there are some other things. There's some practical things. You know, I remember when I went to I joked about when I went to Shoreditch about getting rid of my suits. I didn't really get rid of my suits. I just downgraded them to sports jackets, right, and jeans, you know, sort of thing. So I've always been reasonably well presented within the office environment, right? It's just something from when I started out life. You know, I've always worn a suit or a jacket or whatever sort of thing, and I continue to do that to this day. And I remember when I went to America, the CEO sent somebody to pick me up from the hotel in a car, and I'd only sort of spoken to the CEO a few times on video calls and stuff like that, and the person said, "How will I recognize him?" And he just said, well, he'll be the smartest person you've ever met. And so it's like, and so it's a thing. People joke about it and they go, oh, why is it? But actually, for me, it's a uniform, right? Yeah. And so consequently, I like to put it on, get into work mode. And then when I get home at the end of the day, I take it off. I never have dinner and carry on my evening in my uniform, right? And that's a sort of a mental release from it. And it allows me to switch off and transition out of that. You know, that can be difficult when you're running a global organization in the same way that I am for the technology function for Naked Wines. You know, you're not often off, you know, but having that sort of, I'm now in a different role for this period of my day, I think that helps. And then the final thing is perspective, right? So I think, you know, just reminding yourself on a daily basis, I pretty much spent all of my life working in, you know, not, you know, particularly at times like this, not anything you'd call frontline services, right? So, you know, I've enjoyed immensely the industries I've worked in, telecommunications, TV and entertainment. these are all important things in our lives, all part of our culture. Wine, that's a huge part of our culture, right? And
also at the moment.
Yeah, actually, you know, we are not just the wine, but the interaction and the conversations that are going on around the wine are important to people in lockdown. Yeah, so but I'm not a nurse, right? We're not saving lives here. We're not, and so that perspective, you know, just every now and again stepping back and going, the world's not blown up here. You know, we're trying to do something, and we're trying to do right by our customers and our staff and our partners, and we should be diligent about that and put our best foot forward at all times. But it's not the end of the world if something goes a bit wrong, and so it's certainly not worth losing sleep over. And I sleep very well.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important, isn't it? I think, if, like you say, it's good to take a step away from it and realize that. We do that sometimes, don't we, Sandra, when we get a bit carried away and you think it's life or death, and we're just like, I think that's the advantage of like having each other, isn't it, as a balancing board, to be able to say, no, it's all right, just leave it.
But I think one of the things I learned from some colleagues a few years ago when I was a bit younger, and I was working with people sort of my age now, and we were just having a round table conversation, and they all had hobbies, and I was like, I've got a hobby. But hobbies, I've got a hobby that feels old manish, you know, sort of thing. And so, but it stuck with me over a little while, and so I spent a little while searching for hobbies, and I've done a few bits and bobs. But the one that I've sort of settled on and I'm most passionate about at the moment is beekeeping.
Oh wow, that's so cool.
I have bees in my garden. I recently, this weekend just gone, I harvested a whole load of honey from them.
How many bees have you got?
At the moment, it'll be about 60,000.
Whoa. So you harvested your honey at the weekend?
Yeah, but to put it into context for those who don't know about beekeeping, that's actually only one hive.
Oh, is it only one? I thought that might be like 2 or 3. It's crazy, isn't it?
It depends on what time of year they shrink and grow, but I won't bore you about bees. We could do a whole nother podcast on bees if you like. But the point is, it's something different from my day job, and it's something where you go and you have to be reasonably quiet and collected and focused on what you're doing, and that is a welcome release as well.
Yeah, it sounds like you'd be able to properly switch off. That.
How much honey will that produce then?
That one hive was a little light this time round, but I got about 30 jars out of it.
Wow,
that's so cool. Amazing. I love that.
In lockdown and I was at your studio, I would give you a jar. I would have brought a jar.
Oh, thank you. Well, we'll have to arrange for that when we get back to the office.
Sounds like a plan.
So I think last question really, and what will be really interesting to end this on and hear about is, obviously you've been with Naked Wines for 4 or 5 months now. You know, you've talked about upscaling and kind of like loose plans for growth. What's within your role currently and within Naked Wines, what are you most excited about? What plans, you know, what are your kind of what the next big plans for you looking like over the next kind of year or two?
Sure. So I think that, you know, it's still early days, to be honest, but, you know, in the first few weeks, I was like, right, what have I got in people terms? You know, have I got a bunch of skilled individuals here? Can I take them on that next journey? And you know, sometimes that's, you know, not always the case. In this case, my predecessor did a really great job of bringing a bunch of skilled and talented people together. And so that was a big tick for me. It was like, right, I've got these people. Now, they haven't operated at the scale that we're going to go to before, certainly not within Naked Wines, and nor have their teams in the main. Yeah. So, you know, helping them understand what that looks like and setting a clear strategy for them to be able to grow and scale the company, you know, as a team and as individuals. That really excites me. I'm all about the people in that sense. Yeah. I think the other bit that excites me is that is bringing technology into the business a bit more. So I think there's been, as is often the case in companies, there's been a little bit of sort of, you know, separation, service provider, supplier, and customer sort of thing. And I think we can do that globally a lot better, and that will fuel our ambition in terms of growth, in terms of getting through the right product development that we want to do across you know, our website, apps, and our services to our customers, and also to the winemakers. So I think, you know, it is scale, it is growing, all of that kind of stuff. But, you know, the recent COVID-19 sort of peak in some services like food and wine has shown us that ambition is within our grasp. Yeah, that there is the opportunity that people want to buy great products in a more direct to consumer fashion and have a bit more control over that, have some relationship with the supply chain. You know, where's this coming from? Where's their food and their wine coming from? And so I think, you know, just keeping on doing that, but at a much bigger scale. We've got some interesting projects coming up, which I probably can't really talk about too much. But yeah, Naked Wines is certainly going to be one to watch, and I think we're on an interesting growth journey.
It's exciting.
Yeah, sounds great. That's super exciting. Well, thank you so much, David, for taking the time to come on the podcast today. It was lovely to meet you as well. Looking forward to signing up for a membership on Naked Wines and some honey. And hopefully when we get back into the office, it'd be great for you to come and visit. But yeah, it's been great having you on and hearing your story. So thanks so much for taking the time to speak to us.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much, Ellie. Thank you. It's been lovely to chat, reminisce about some old times, some I maybe had forgotten about a little bit more, but thinking about the future, it's all good. I hope you guys remain safe.
Lovely. And if anyone's got any questions, anything you've touched on today that they'd like to find a little bit more about, are they okay to sort of message you directly on LinkedIn? Are you on Twitter?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter, DC99 on Twitter. On LinkedIn, David Crawford, you'll find me, Naked Wine CTO. So yeah, absolutely, I've got quite a big network, and I'm always happy to meet new people and discuss stuff. So that's great.
Great,
fantastic. Thank you very much for the listeners tuning in. We've got a couple of superb speakers lined up as well for the next couple of weeks while we're still in lockdown. But please do get in touch on the Transition Partners LinkedIn if you've got any questions that you'd like us to specifically ask for the upcoming speakers. But yeah, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Stay safe all.
There we go. That's fine. We'll just cut it there. Thank you. Well done.
Did that go okay for you guys?
Really interesting.
Yeah, great job. I think you did a really good job.
The trouble is, you wind me up and I'm off, and I had to keep reminding myself to pause so that you could ask a question rather than me just waffle.
So the office is in Norwich then, is it?
Yeah.
What's the tech scene like in Norwich?
It's quite interesting, actually. There's quite a lot of startups in Norwich. So the actual Naked Wines came out of Virgin Wines.
Right. Oh, right. Okay.
Literally came out of Virgin Wines. The CEO of Virgin Wines left Virgin Wines and started Naked Wines. Yeah, and
right.
A whole bunch of staff with him, sort of 10 years ago. And but Virgin Wines was in Norwich because Virgin Money is in Norwich, and Virgin Money was a joint venture between Aviva, the big insurance guys,
Aviva, haven't you, in Norwich,
where their headquarters is, and Virgin, right? And so it's set up this little bubble. Then HSBC were in Norwich as well. They just, for some random reason, decided to set up there a few years ago. And so there's quite a big tech community. And then HSBC sort of left. Aviva have downscaled a bit, outsourced a lot to India, et cetera, et cetera. And so suddenly you've sort of got this tech knowledge around, lots of tech people, sort of mid-tier and leaders, and a bit of a like gap in terms of what the people coming through are doing. And funnily enough, the UEA had sort of got on the bandwagon 7 or 8 years ago and were churning out really great technical people with some really great technology courses.
Great.
And so, you know, demand, supply ended up generating demand, if you see what I mean, right?
Yeah. I mean, Cambridge is super hot for AI, isn't it?
Yeah, but actually there's now something called the tech corridor that is coming on. So Norwich has long been into bioscience, and you know, because it's a farming county, so you know, a lot of agri-tech, bioscience and stuff there. And then you've got Cambridge, which is very technology driven and research driven, and there's literally the A11 and A14 between those two is like a long road corridor. And they've now called it the tech corridor, and there are businesses setting up almost all along those so they can get the benefit of both Norwich and Cambridge.
That's really great.
Naked Wines being in Norwich, other than Virgin Wines is there, it is a little bit of an anomaly. It doesn't need to be there. whether, you know, one of the questions that I got early doors, I wasn't going to say this on your podcast, but one of the questions I got early doors was like, are you going to move us all to America? You know, so America is where the growth is.
Where's the office in America?
Napa Valley, the wine valley.
Oh, wow. That's
Literally
amazing.
Napa. You know, you know, I went there and you walk outside the hotel and every second shop is a wine shop, you know, sort of. So,
I would love that.
It's all around you and Californian sun, and it's, yeah, we should have done the interview there. That would have been good.
Yeah.
That's so cool, isn't it? So do you think you'll be hiring some more tech then over in America?
Possibly. The trouble with its location, which is of course because of the wine industry, just up the road from San Francisco and Silicon Valley. And so the cost of technology people out there, because of the competitive market, is extortionate. And so, you know, day one, everyone was like, oh, can we stand up a dev team in California? And I was like, yeah, we can, but it'll cost you 3 times the amount of a dev team. Well, it'll cost you twice the amount of a dev team in London or Manchester or, you know, a big city in the UK, and 3 times of what it cost in Norwich, because of course, one of the benefits of being in Norwich is that we're not paying London salaries, right?
Of course, yeah.
Apart from mine, of course, which is extortionate London rates. So, you know.
Yeah, obviously. One of the girls that used to work for us, actually, she went traveling for a bit and decided she didn't want to go back into recruitment, and she works for Virgin Wines in Norwich, doesn't she? Yeah. Apparently she's doing really well. So if you need a salesperson, let us know, because we were gutted for her to leave recruitment, weren't we?
Really good, yeah.
She's a really good girl.
Is your guys' main focus technology, you know, recruitment, or do you do other stuff as well?
We mainly do technology, business change, transformation, UK wide, and we also just under 2 years ago opened up in Berlin, in Germany as well. So we cover
some of our guys, like we work with some quite big clients, and sometimes they'll ask us to help out on other, like we'll do projects for them. Like we did one for AO.com, didn't we, a few months ago, where it was something quite random that they were after, a load of wasn't it, they were after like German and French speakers, like admin kind of stuff, and we were just like, there were multiple roles and they needed a hand, and we had capacity, so we helped.
We've done a few like sort of like more like tech sales type roles, pre-sales. We've done a mixture. I mean, I've been in recruitment for 18 years since I finished university, and so we've done all sorts.
The principle's the same, but I think obviously like our market, tech's where we love working, and most of our clients and contacts are in our network. And I'm sure there's loads of people then from Sky that you'll probably know that we're still. Do you know Graham Phillips actually?
Yeah.
He's coming on the podcast soon. I love Graham.
Okay.
And do you know Mark Kitchen? You will know Mark, won't you?
Yeah,
He's
Mark
coming on.
For me as well.
Yeah, so Mark's coming on next week or the week after, because he's at Lad Bible now.
If they're from Leeds, they used to work for me at some point.
Yeah. So I'm sure.
Great guys. Mark's having a fun time at Lad Bible, from as far as I can see. I've lost touch with Graham, but yeah, I've followed Mark a little bit. And,
he's really nice. I was on the phone to him on Thursday for like an hour. I think me and him, he's chatty and I'm chatty.
Have you hooked into anybody at Sky?
So we've spoken to Sky about recruitment before, and they now work with the new third party that manages it all, and they wanted us to work with us because we knew one of the guys that was managing it, and he worked with us before and recommended us. But there was something in the terms that basically meant if we hired someone for Sky and then they left 3 years later and they took loads of data, we'd be liable for the cost, wasn't it, Sandra? It was something crazy. Like
some legalities that we just couldn't afford to take the risk on, really. So
I'm sure it never would have been called up, but for a small business, we were like, we can't. Like do you know what I mean? We're privately owned business, isn't it?
It's always been challenging to contract with the big boys in that situation. The only thing I would say is that Sky runs a social responsibility policy, and so despite what it says in the contract, they wouldn't bankrupt you as a small business. They wouldn't bankrupt you because it's not within their social responsibility policy, and consequently it's just not worth it to them, because the press around, you know, bankrupting a small company. Because actually, if a guy who you put in there walked away with 3 years worth of data, are they really going to dump that all on you, or are they going to say that their internal policies aren't good enough, right? So it's in the contract, and I take your point about legal risk, but generally speaking, those things never come to fruition.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should probably try and get back in touch, because there's still Jamie there, isn't there? And
Rennie Hunt, she runs the Leeds office.
Yeah, Renee. I've never met her, but I've heard really good things about her.
Yeah, and she's a great ambassador for women in technology.
Yeah.
You know, so she'd be somebody good to have on your podcast. And she does do stuff. She's quite involved in the networking scene in Leeds and the surrounding area. She's moved up there now. She was London, but she's moved up there with her husband.
You should get in early for your WIT podcast.
Yeah. And Matt said he was coming on. Matt Gress said he was coming on at some point. So.
Matt Gress, great. He took over from me in Leeds, so I set up the whole Leeds office. He was already up there. I set up the whole thing, and then he took it over from that point and ran it. Did really well. Great guy. Got a lot of time from that, and then he went over to the BBC and is doing great work there. You know, so
yeah, I heard he's doing really well.
And he travels a lot. You get some interesting travel stories out of him, and he's a bit of an adventurer. Lives life to the full a little bit.
So. Cool. Yeah, we definitely need to try and get him scheduled in for sure. Right, I better go anyway because I've got another call to jump on. But thank you so much for your time. It was lovely to meet you, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
No problem.
Thanks, David.
Right.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye, David. Bye.